Okay, good morning and welcome. Today we are going to talk about the value theory in Marx and, of course, the labor theory of value in Marx and its importance for understanding Marx's overall project developed in both Capital and in his earlier work, such as the 1844 manuscripts. Okay. Last time we talked about the general analytical framework of the classical school of thought or classical political economy in general. And we said that classical and also Marxian political economy is about production and distribution. It's a long-run analysis from an analytical point of view. And the basic problematic is capital accumulation, which is not independent of production and distribution, especially distribution, because it is the profit which makes capital accumulation possible. And everything depends on the profit. So from the very beginning, political economy is about distribution of income, distribution, production, and capital accumulation. And the basic analytical unit is not the individual, as in neoclassical economics, but the social classes. So distribution of income among the social classes, as Ricardo said, is the basic distinguishing characteristic of the classical political economy. But everything depends on the notion of surplus. What is surplus? Surplus is the difference between total output produced and production costs, simply put. I have maybe okay, I may have another presentation, but unfortunately it's in Turkish, so I couldn't find the English version. But I'm sure you can understand what it is written. Okay, the notion of surplus is the difference between the total value of total output, of course, and the necessary consumption. Necessary in the sense that it actually refers, this term necessary refers to inputs that are used in the production process. So necessary consumption means input costs of production, it refers to. So the difference between total output and the necessary consumption is the notion of surplus. This notion of surplus is understood differently by different writers. For example, according to Ricardo, the surplus includes profits and rents. So Ricardo tried to show that rent is a portion of surplus, and as the price of corn increases, so does the rent, and profits will decrease, and in the long run, this will stop the capital accumulation process, very simply, crudely put. On the other hand, for Marx, surplus is equal to actually surplus value. The difference between Ricardo and Marx is this distinction between surplus and surplus value, actually, but the notion of surplus also exists in Marx, and according to him, the whole of this surplus goes to the capitalist. Of course, this is again an abstraction. We should be careful about this because, as I said last time, rent is not considered an important category for Marx because, in Marx times, rent was not so important, politically speaking, especially the political power of the landed aristocracy diminished to a great extent. So the basic class distinction or class struggle is between the bourgeoisie or capitalists and the industrial proletariat or the workers, working class in general. So basically, as an abstraction, Marx uses the surplus that is equal to the surplus value. I'm going to come to the definition of surplus value, but simply put, surplus value is the surplus that workers produce or create greater than their own value. Well, we are going to talk about this, but from the beginning, we should be concentrating on the notion of surplus. So surplus is the difference between total output, value of total output, and the necessary consumption. And on the basis of this, we can write the rate of profit as the amount of surplus divided by necessary consumption. Necessary consumption includes labor costs and capital costs in our jargon, contemporary economists jargon. But actually, it's the sum of capital. So this formula simply refers to the rate of profit that is created by the capital, and capital is of two forms. One is the circulating capital or variable capital in Marx, and the other component is the constant capital or fixed capital in Ricardo. Anyway, so this is the difference. But the problem of value appears from the very beginning. And according to Adam Smith, natural price is equal to wage, rent, and profit, the sum of profit. So this is the cost price for any commodity. But the problem here is that, as I talked about last time, we have a problem of index number problem, which is important to distinguish between general prices and the total prices. What I'm saying is that basically this is quite a simple formulation of the natural price. Natural price is the cost price. That also includes profit, but from this, again, we should be careful about the distinction between surplus and profit. According to Ricardo, as I said, natural price includes surplus plus wages, but for Marx, profit is equal to surplus value. Anyway, other than that, the general.
So basically, it's like marginal price and the real price, yeah?
Could you repeat the question?
So basically, the price is like marginal price and the real price.
No, not exactly. I mean, there's no such notion within the classical political economy as the marginal price or the notion of marginal itself. It's a cost price. It's a markup price, actually. A markup price is equal to the sum of costs plus a profit margin. And the profit margin is to be determined by the uniform profit rate. So this is the price of production, actually, as Ricardo uses.
Okay, so what about the natural price?
Excuse me?
What about the natural price?
Natural price is equal to the price of production. Natural price is called by Adam Smith. Ricardo and Marx calls it price of production. They are the same, actually.
Okay,
so that's the basic problem. I'm coming to that. Anyway, so according to Adam Smith, natural price is equal to wages, rents, and profits. But here we have this index number problem. We have to distinguish between changes in the prices that is caused by the change in a distribution category and the changes in the prices caused by the change in the value of the commodity. What I'm saying is simple, actually. Basically, if you look at this particular formulation, the natural price, I'm sorry. Okay, so the basic determinant of wages here, for example, are the wage goods, but the price of any wage good, I mean corn, for example, the price of corn depends on, again, the profit rate, rents, and wages within the corn producing sector. So by this logic, we can say that each natural price depends on other natural prices. So basically, we have to explain in this logic, we have to explain the natural price with other prices, which creates a circular reasoning, basically. It is possible, as I said last time, if you use a simultaneous equation system, as in the general equilibrium theory of Walras, for example. But the classical thinking actually does not have this kind of tools, maybe. So they need something that is not a price, but which is capable of explaining the prices, other prices, which is called the invariant measure of value. It's a measure of value, actually. So basically, we need this measure of value in order to explain prices with something other than a price. So we need this measure of value. Again, I'm coming to this. And the second problem with this formulation of the natural prices in Adam Smith is that this formulation reveals the general prices, nominal prices actually, but we need also relative prices. So in order to distinguish between relative prices and general prices, general price level, we need index number problem. So we need a measure of value. So this is a technical problem from the very beginning. So we need some measure of value, which is not a price, but which can be capable of explaining the prices, the emergence and changes in the prices. And also, this measure of value is capable of distinguishing between relative prices and or real prices and the nominal prices or general prices, basically. So again, it's a basic.
I'm sorry, Professor, again.
Yeah.
So basically, measurable value is not a price. It's dependent on the amount of work applied, on the amount of on the price of the wages, on the value of the wages, and of the price on the price of the rent. Yeah.
Yeah.
Can we actually explain the measurable value on the by using this, like the amount of work applied, the amount of wages, and the price of the rent?
Well,
by using these values.
By Marx, it's labor values or labor time. That is.
The amount of work applied. Yeah.
That's
so basically, more you work apply, the bigger is price. Yeah.
Come again.
More like the amount of work. Like if the amount of work you apply is more like the normal one, so the price is gonna be higher.
Yeah.
Because of that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, if you return to this natural price equation, the measure of value, an invariant measure of value, means that basically it is invariant to changes in the distributive categories. From this, you can see that any change in the wage rate will change the natural price of that commodity and other commodities, of course, right? Basically. But if we talk about the labor theory of value, for example, which argues that the value of any commodity is equal to the total labor time that is congealed within the commodity, then we can ask the question that if there's no change in the value of commodity, why the price changes? So we need to distinguish between these two changes. We need an invariant measure of value, which is independent of the changes in the distributive categories, such as wage or rent or profit, basically. That's the basic idea. Okay, let me see. Yes?
I don't know. I said thanks.
Okay. Okay. So the price of production, we said, are total cost prices, basically, right? So basically, this is a Sraffian or Leontief type model for the working of the economy in general. This is an input-output model. You may remember from your math class, maybe. In this input-output model, every sector uses the outputs of other sectors as inputs. Of course, this is not true for all sectors, but usually there are relations of interdependencies among the sectors, so we need to consider the whole of the economy. So basically, if X is the total production in physical terms, maybe, these are this X1 refers to the amount of production within the first sector, amount of production in the second, etc. And if P is the price vector into one column vector, so this is the price of the P1 is the price of first commodity, P2 is the second commodity, etc. So basically, total revenue will be Pj times Xj, right? Output times price. So on the basis of this, if we are to talk about surplus, which is defined as the difference between the value of total output or total revenue for any firm, or for the economy as a whole, must be greater than the total costs. So basically, this left-hand side refers to the total revenue, and the right-hand side is about the total costs. These are the inputs, right? X1J means that the input that is produced in the J sector, the input that is used in the first sector. And no, I'm sorry, I said it wrong. If you look at that, this formulation is more correct. Okay, here, this particular P1 times X11 refers to the amount of input that is used in the first sector, which is produced in the first sector. So the sector uses its own output as input. This is the input used in the first sector, which is produced by the second sector. This is the end sector output that is used as input in the first sector, etc. So this is a general equilibrium model. So of course, this is a new model in the sense that the classical political economists were not aware of this. With Leontief and then Sraffa, this model came into existence actually, but it's a simple way of presenting the classical theory of price determination in general. That's why we are using this. And also it's useful to understand the value theory. Okay, so this is an input-output model, basically, and if there's no surplus, the revenue for each sector must be equal to the total cost of the production in the same sector. So this is, in this model, there's no surplus, but if we are to talk about surplus, we need, as I said again, this total revenue must be greater than the total costs of production in general. So this model of the quantities of production can be written in the form, in another form by using the technical coefficients of production. This Aij is the technical coefficient of production. This is Xj in the denominator. Refers to the total production of the jade good, and this Xij refers to the total amount of inputs that are produced in the ith sector that is used in the production of the jade sector. So, no, it's the other way around. I'm sorry again. So if you want to produce the quantity xj, right, in any j sector, we need to use inputs that are produced in the ith sector. So basically, this is the one of them. There are these technical coefficients of production creates an end-to-end matrix that includes, this is A11, simply means that 1 unit of the first good, first commodity produced in the first sector that is used in the production process of the first good. This is the second good that is used as input in the production of first good. We are talking about 1 units, not total units. You know, if you formulate this whole system in terms of total amount of production, we will have this. But if you use technical coefficients of production, we will have this second system, basically. So this is, again, an economy that is not producing surplus. There is no surplus because total prices are equal to total costs here. Adam Smith's natural price or price of production when there's no profit. So if we need to bring about this is the solution of this matrix system. This is a homogeneous system, basically. So if you want to introduce the notion of surplus into this system, we need to use this particular expression. Anyway, Xij, isn't it a good produced in sector J? No, total Xj is equal to the total production of good J, basically. Xji refers to total amount of input together that is used to produce the quantity of good J. So that's the basic difference. If you return to this again, here you can see that Xj is the total amount of J produced in the J sector, of course. Xij is the total amount of inputs that are used in the production of the commodity J. So that's the basic difference. So on the basis of this, we can define technical coefficients of production, which is saying that in order for us to produce 1 unit of good J, we need to use how much output, how much input we need to use. That input, of course, being the outputs of other sectors, basically. So that's the basic idea. Anyway, so again, returning to this is the solution, but the notion of surplus, I'm sorry, here again, the difference between Pj, the price of the commodity in question, and this expression within the parentheses is the cost of production. So this is simply the total price of the good commodity in question, and this is the total cost, the difference being the profit of the capitalist producing this particular commodity, basically. Anyway, so this is profit, is the difference between price and the cost, and if you divide this from the cost of production, we will get profit rate. This expression is quite similar, same, actually, I'm sorry, with the formulation that we begin with. Actually, profit is the difference between the value of total output and the total cost of necessary consumption in the classical jargon. So we have this particular system. So if we add, if we bring the notion of profit here, we have this particular expression, this 1217. I took this from one of my articles published in Akdeniz University Journal. It's in Turkey, so I use this. Anyway, so here, this means simply that we are talking about sector J here, and this is the profit rate. Profit rate is assumed to be uniform across sectors. In each sector, we have the same profit rate. This is because of the existence of free competition. Free competition means that capital is perfectly mobile for seeking higher rates of profit. If there's a drop in the profit rate within a particular sector, capital will move out into the sectors in which profit rates are higher. So in the long run, there's a tendency for profit rates in each sector to be equalized so that we have a uniform profit rate across the sectors of the economy. Okay, so this is the uniform profit rate, R, meaning that 1 plus R simply means that basically total costs of production plus profit margin. So the price is a market price, basically. It's equal to the total cost plus a profit margin, and this profit margin is to be determined by the uniform profit rate. This is the essence of the price of production. That's the basic idea. Okay, so this is the price equation, which also includes profit, right? And profit margin is again determined by the profit rate. Anyway, so in the matrix form, for representing the whole of the economy, of course, we have this equation, P is equal to 1 plus R times A. A is the technical coefficient matrix or technology matrix, it's called, and P is the prices, again, price vector. So here we should be careful about this from a technical point of view. Of course, here 1 plus R is not a matrix or a vector, it's a scalar. What I'm saying is this is the same for each equation representing the economy, representing the particular sector of the economy in general. So from this, we can reach this idea. Anyway, on the basis of this, we can also add a homogeneous labor input into this equation, in which case, if this is Lj, is in the amount of labor that is used as an input in a sector J, basically. And the wage rate is W, so therefore wage rate is W times quantity of labor used in the thing. Therefore, so this first part with A coefficients represent the total cost of capital in our sense, in economist sense, maybe inputs, costs of inputs, plus labor costs. Of course, for Marx and for the classical tradition in general, this total cost is simply the total cost of capital. That also includes both labor payments and input payments or any kind of input that is used in the production process. So within the matrix form, we have this particular thing. Again, this is a vector of labor quantities, and this is the wage rate for a homogeneous product. So wage rate is the same for each sector. We can say that because of the competitive market assumption, of course, pre-competition we are talking about. So on the basis of this particular equation represents the relationship between prices and costs of production. So this will be, this is the matrix form again, 1 over 1 plus R times identity matrix. This is minus A, technology matrix. Inverse, we are talking about this minus 1 refers to inverse. It should have been superscript, of course, times labor times plus, labor quantities of labor times wage rate. So this shows the relationship between prices and the costs of production. Basically, this is nothing but Adam Smith's famous Natural price, right? Natural price includes the total cost of production plus profit, right? Basically, this is the same idea within a more complicated form. Why do we need this particular form? In order to distinguish between values and prices of production, of course. So far, we have not talked about values at all. We only considered the relationship between total costs and prices in general. So this is, anyway, these are the technical complexities or whatever. Okay, so this is the general form in matrix form, of course. P is equal to 1 plus R. Again, this is R scalar times technology matrix times P price vector. And okay, there's a slight difference between the Marxian system and the Sraffian system in this regard, but in terms of the solution to the system, there's no big difference. There's no difference at all, actually. In the Marxian system, this second expression within the parentheses refers to the total costs. And total costs plus R times total costs. So we have total cost of production, cost of labor times plus cost of capital, plus profit rate, which is determined by the uniform profit rate, profit margin, I'm sorry, that is determined by the profit rate. So this is the Marxian system. But for the Sraffian system, the total cost of total input costs of production is distinguished from the labor cost in general. What is the difference? The difference here is about the distribution of income, basically. You know, within the Sraffian system, some part of surplus created by the labor, basically, or within the economy in general, some portion of the surplus may also go to the laborers. But within the Marxist system, there's no such thing. The whole of the surplus will go to the capitalist. But other than that, there's no difference between these two expressions in terms of the solution to the system and the solution. Solution is this. In both systems, we have the same solution. Price is determined by first profit rate and then quantity of labor that is used in the production process. So basically, this is the solution of the system as a whole. Natural price is equal to the total cost, which has two parts. One part is the labor cost, the other part is the input cost, but they're both considered as capital costs within the classical political economy. This is also true for Marx. Okay, if we return to the values, we start from a very simple expression, basically, and our assumption is that we have a commodity A, big A, and this commodity uses two inputs. One is quantity of labor, and other is the same commodity. You know, we are talking about production of wheat by using labor and wheat. Wheat is used as input in order to produce, again, wheat. Of course, here a total amount of wheat that is used as input to produce 1 unit of commodity A. This should be less than 1 because of some obvious reason. If you use, for example, 2 units of wheat in order to produce 1 unit of wheat, this production will not be feasible, right? There's no reason for engaging into this production. The quantity of input that is used to produce the same good must be less than 1. So in order to produce 1 unit of any commodity, we need the quantity of input that is less than 1 unit of the same commodity, of course. So on the basis of this, we can say that this expression is about values. What is this? Gamma. So this is the quantity of the good in question, commodity in question, that is used as input. So this is the quantity of labor that is used directly, and the rest refers to the quantity of labor and inputs that are used indirectly. What am I saying is that we are talking about labor values according to the labor theory of value. The quantity, the value of any commodity is to be determined by labor values, labor time that is used in the production process in general. So in the beginning, we have two inputs in the first period, let's say, quantity of labor that is used directly. This is called direct labor or direct labor. And this is the labor value of the input that is used in the production of output. So in order for us to produce 1 unit of the good in question, commodity in question in this period, we need input that is produced in the previous period. But in the previous period, of course, the same commodity is produced through using labor and the quantity, the same commodity as input. And in the third period, in the previous second period, actually, again, we have the same idea. So this goes to infinity. So these first expression refers to the direct labor that is used in the production of the good in question, commodity in question. And the remaining part, which goes to infinity, is the indirect labor cost, basically. Labor costs and this. So in the end, this is the approximation, basically. Labor, amount, quantity of labor divided by 1 minus A. Is it 1? Yes. This is the total value of the good in question. And on the basis of this, we can say that the quantity of labor value is equal to the value of indirect labor plus direct labor. So on the basis of this, we can say that the value of any commodity, commodity A, is equal to L divided by 1 minus A. So this particular expression refers to the total value, total labor value of the commodity in question. So this will be subscript, actually. Anyway, if you have n commodities, we can generalize to this to a matrix system. We have this expression. This is total quantities of labor, labor time. Of course, this is the technology matrix, again, the input-output matrix. And this is the values plus L, or on the basis of this, of course, we can have this expression. We can say that this is a direct expression of the value equation, right? Values are determined by labor values, labor time. This is, again, will be superscript. This is the inverse of the 1 minus A matrix, identity minus A matrix. So this is the relationship between values and labor time and total value of the goods in question. Okay, if you combine this, since we know that this is the price of production equation, and if we combine these two things, price of production and also values, the price of a commodity, of any commodity or every commodity within the system, of course, depends on first technology, input-output matrix, or input-output matrix, the inverse of this, and profit rate and wage rate and labor values. So on the basis of this, we can say that the price of production depends on three important variables or sets of variables. One is the labor values, labor time expended or congealed within any commodity, technology, which is represented by the matrix A, and the distributive shares, profit rate, and wages, basically. So this is the ultimate, if you will, equation of value within the Marxian or in general Ricardian system or classical political economy. We can say that prices of production, cost prices, we are talking about again, or natural prices of Adam Smith's, are determined by labor values, quantities of labor used in respective sectors, producing commodities, technology, input-output relations, or technical coefficients of production, and the distributive shares, especially profit rate. Profit rate is to be determined through the process of pre-competition. So in the end, there will be only one profit rate, uniform profit rate across the sectors. Of course, here there's an important assumption about which we should be careful, which is the assumption that here technology matrix is considered as given. So technical coefficients of production are given. So there's no change in technology. But if there's any change within this matrix or within the technical coefficients of production in any one sector, doesn't matter, then the whole set of prices of production will also change. That's the basic idea. So technology is important, labor values is important, and distributive shares are important. Here we can say that we have finally came up with an expression which is capable of distinguishing between the role of distributive shares and the values within the process of price determination, so that we can distinguish between prices and values, and also we have an immanent measure of value which is not dependent on the changes in the distributive shares. For example, if there's a change in the wage rate, if this affects the total values, we have this the index number problem that I talked about previously, right? So that's the basic problem. So here we explain the prices of production on the basis of three variables or three sets of variables. One is the level of technology, which is an important determinant of labor productivity, basically, right? And the second is profit rate and the wage rate. And of course, finally, the total values, the value of any commodity, labor values or labor time, congealed or crystallized sometimes within the commodity. Okay, maybe we can stop here.